Ah, love, romance, sexual attraction. These are the things that poetry, pop songs, and movies are all about. Fraught with all kinds of peril, there's also the potential for good things, but also disappointment. It is what we all want. But with all of that as sort of the subtext to the conversation, to every encounter and relationship between the sexes, can we be just friends? Can a non-romantic, non-sexual, strictly platonic, mixed-gender relationship exist, especially, and this is what we're talking about, if you're already in a committed relationship with somebody else? Say you're married. Mind and Body is what we call this segment with our two regulars, Drs. Amy Brodsky and Michelle Epstein. Dr. Amy, a board-certified dermatologist. Her practice is the derm. Is it also called the derm in your Park Ridge office?
Yep.
Her main one's in Glenview, and Dr. Michelle has a doctorate in clinical psychology. Like this show, these doctors have their own Facebook page, facebook.com/Chicago Doctors. Our number, 312-981-7200, to dive into the conversation with us. So, doctors, let me ask you, on the open field here, can these relationships work?
I'm going to say men and women can not be friends. And I'll have 3 caveats. Michelle, what do you say?
I say that they can be friends, but that those friendships are subject to a lot of caveats, disclaimers, and footnotes.
All right. So for the world, according to Dr. Amy, I've got 3 ways men and women can be friends. So first, A, either the woman has somewhat of a sexual attraction to the man, but they've gotten over it, they've recognized it, or they don't discuss it, and then they are friends.
So some self-discipline, self-control.
Right. Or they could picture themselves kissing this man. Or B, the man can picture themselves kissing this woman, but haven't acted on it, are sexually attracted to them, but are now just friends.
But that's dangerous.
Or wait, C, they've had some type of attraction to each other. They've acted on it, and now they're friends. So they maybe have gone out on a date. They used to date when they were in high school, and now they're friends. But without A, B, or C, I say it's impossible.
So there always has to be, you're saying there's always has to be either a history of or a current physical attraction,
There's somewhat of a physical, maybe even a mental attraction. There's some type of attraction. Maybe you like the way they look. If you're absolutely not attracted to them, you're not going to be friends with them.
But attraction can be defined in a lot of different ways. I agree that there is often physical attraction, but there's also this emotional piece, this piece of we meet, we're acquaintances, and now we start to share things about ourselves and self-disclose, and that builds an emotional bond. The question is that emotional bond also threatening to the outside relationship?
Yes,
of course.
As soon as you start disclosing emotional things about your life to somebody of the opposite sex, you are no longer really just friends, unless you're completely if you wouldn't tell your husband that you're talking about that, then you're not just friends.
I agree that particularly the emotional intimacy is dangerous, because when there's a physical attraction, I think we have an awareness that we have to bridle that, or it could be threatening to our relationships. But the emotional attachment is problematic too. And I think in a lot of relationships, men, particularly don't want their wives sharing intimate details with anyone, same gender or opposite gender. That's a violation of sort of the privacy of that relationship. So when you start to share, it does get slippery.
Yeah, I think a lot of people may engage, fully aware of these points that you just brought up, but engage in these relationships as an alternative to having an affair. They kind of like the almost aspects of it,
right,
but they know that they would not want to go all the way.
And some women may get along better with men, but there's always going to be that tiny little bit of attraction. There's always going to be the A, B, or C. So if the woman says, oh, we're just friends, me and him, I'm going to guarantee you that if he was alone with you on an island, he'd want to be with you.
Wow.
So you think it's mostly the man who has that physical attraction?
I think either way. It could be either way.
Well, I agree with Bill's point about that there's this like towing the line piece of it. And it's interesting because there's actually research to support that has looked at these attitudes and found that particularly as we get older, that we're in some of these relationships not for companionship or sharing ideas, but because they make us feel good. So it's sort of a kind of safe way to have that validation without necessarily crossing that line.
Right.
Let's see. We got people that are all abuzz about getting engaged in the conversation. Yeah. Julie, you're first up on WGN. Can friendships be possible between men and women?
Yeah, I'm friends with a guy I was best friends with through high school and college, and we married different people, and I'm divorced now, but he's still married, and we're very dear friends. We will always be great friends. As a matter of fact, his wife, something came up and couldn't go on a vacation 2 years ago, and they let me go. They asked me to go take the ticket.
Well, that's very unusual. So there's no sexual energy at all in that relationship with this guy?
No, he's hilarious. He's funny. He's an amazing guy. He's good looking. But I mean,
sounds like you're.
And if you were single, if he was single, would you be more than friends?
No, he's just like my best friend. He's like he's.
Do you guys live in the same? Do you live in the same state? Do you go out for lunch with him weekly?
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a kid in college, and sometimes I meet with the both of them.
Julie, this point though about he sounds like you want the person you married to be a best friend. He's already that. So are you telling me that if he was divorced,
he's not my best friend anymore, because when he got married, the dynamic changed. We have to let the dynamic change. Okay. We are good friends now, but he's not my best friend.
So,
because there's parameters.
Question: A, does the wife know that you guys go out for lunch once a week? B, is he interested in you? Maybe he's interested in you and you don't know about it.
Absolutely not. You know what? He has too much honor to do that. That's just not who he is. He had 5 sisters, and I think he moves around women easily.
Let's not doubt her. Julie,
I think that's
love
great.
This. I want this to be true. I want this to be possible. Julie, thank you so much.
You're an enigma.
Yeah,
okay, bye.
Good for you. Hey, Linda, you're on WGN. Yes? Can be friends?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, this is Linda. And I was out with a acquaintance last night, and we had this exact conversation. He thought that men and women can't be friends because men are always thinking of something else. But I think absolutely. I think all these reasons that you put on the table of why a man and a woman can become friends, so what of the reason if they've become friends? And in fact, I have a male friend. We're both single. We're just friends. And I think of him as a brother.
So you're both single, but supposing he now gets a girlfriend, is that girlfriend going to let you be friends with him?
And would you be jealous in any way?
I don't know.
Well, let's wait. That's my point.
It depends on the girlfriend, but that doesn't mean we're not friends. And if the new girlfriend puts caveats on it, I mean, we're mature adults. And we're not in our 20s or 30s. We're older than that. And I think to qualify and say absolutely yes or no, and there's all these reasons why, I think it's kind of silly.
I know, and we're here to kind of make this silly. I agree that there can be some variance, but we're just trying to take the yes and no approach. But I do think that if you were to date this other man, or he was to date somebody else, you no longer would be friends.
It's not necessarily that you'd no longer be friends, but the quality of that friendship would probably have to be modified to account for the fact that one or both people had these other commitments.
Linda, I'm glad you called. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye. Doctors Amy and Michelle, Doctor, I was going to say your last name. You are Epstein, right? I was saying it wrong earlier, but I've got it correct now. So we got a bank full of callers. Let's start with Howard about your point on this, because we had said we'd take your call. Hi, Howard. Welcome to WGN.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I would like to speak on a generic level. And when I say yes, no, and maybe, let's define that. On the yes side, we are all predicated upon our moral, ethical upbringing. And so if you take somebody, for instance, that happens to be religious, their values are one of significant monogamy. So that is a person that more apt is to be friends with a person of the opposite sex. If we were to take the flip side of the coin, I'd like to abide by what I call my blood flow theory, which is God did not make man with enough blood in his body to make the two major heads of his body function efficiently, effectively, and simultaneously.
All right, that's about as far as we'll let you go on that point, Howard. Go on to the next
Well, we
one.
get it.
We're not going any further. So that person is probably going to be in the no side, and I think the majority probably fit right in the middle as a mate. And that's my comment.
That's very cool.
I want to hear about the maybe, Howard.
Well, the maybe, I think, is predicated on what both of you said, that sometimes you find a very strong attraction to somebody, and that takes precedence over it for whatever reason. More commonly, that's a physical attraction. I do think if there's more of a mental attraction, that you're just interested in how the person thinks and what they say, you're more apt to be able to go on the side of the yes side, that you will be friends with them, because I think that those relationships that will carry forward on that, when there's not that tremendous hedonistic attraction, that person, you're going to fail in that relationship because you're trying to make something that's not going to work.
Howard,
with a square peg in the wrong hole.
Have you been thinking about this?
Sounds
you
like it.
seem to have a pretty well-formed
Evolved
opinions.
theory.
Yeah. Howard, do you have a lot of women friends?
I do have some women friends. Absolutely, I do. Yes. And I always have had some women friends,
And
for
just-
sure.
but the
In
thing
fact,
that-
I talk about one woman that I had a long time ago that I really thought she was so interesting intellectually, and of course she thought differently, and I allowed myself to succumb to those interests, and we no longer were friends. And so I said I would not do that again, because that was just
He
foolish
learned his
on my
lesson.
part.
All right, Howard, thank you so much. Fascinating, though. I mean, he's got some good points there, I think.
Absolutely.
I think one of the points that he was alluding to is this self-awareness. You need to know who you are and have some self-awareness about whether or not you can abide by certain expectations in these
But
friendships.
there are some, though,
Yes.
who have that self-awareness, but they still want to push it. They want to.
They like to live on the edge.
Yeah.
But,
And-
but
and
do they
that-
want to fall off the edge?
Well, it's
Some
dangerous.
do. Some do. They want it. They want to sort of feel like I have no control over this any longer. It's an excuse.
I think a lot of people like to walk along the edge, and the only thing that's keeping them from falling off the edge is their stable partner.
Robin, you're on WGN. So can you have a platonic relationship with a man?
You know, I just don't think the answer is so black and white. I think that if you're in a committed relationship and as a couple you have friendships with other men and women, then that would be okay. But I think it'd be really difficult to have an isolated friendship outside of the marriage with a man or a woman. I think there's always going to be questions and curiosities and
Urges.
yeah, and
I agree.
and I just don't think it's possible. I also think, and that I think that emotional connection is even more dangerous than a physical connection. Once you start telling someone outside of the marriage about private and personal things, you're growing this attachment to them, and that could be much more dangerous than just thinking someone is good looking.
So your view is then better to play it safe and not even allow such relationships to develop and get started.
I just think that it's crossing a line.
Yeah.
There's definitely some argument for that, Bill, for just
Thanks,
not
Robin.
letting them start. Then there's no slippery slope.
Yeah, because I'll admit, I feel those things working on me when I have I'm in long conversations or I know somebody pretty well, and I try not to stare at a woman who's walking down the street who maybe wants to be stared at. I want to be respectful to my wife, and not show. I mean, you've seen men, how they can be, and sometimes they're with a spouse or a girlfriend, and they're looking at the gal who just walked by, checking her out. That's disrespectful to his wife or girlfriend to do that.
Definitely. And I also think it's how these friendships are initiated. I think that if you have friendships that are long-term friendships that started before you met your partner that maybe remain, that's different than perhaps you met someone in the workplace or at the gym, and now all of a sudden this acquaintanceship is growing into a friendship. That, to me, is even more questionable.
I agree. Right.
Noelle, you're on WGN. How about it? What do you think?
Hi. Well, I don't agree with. I mean, I don't agree with what you're saying at all, because I think that women can have men as friends, just friends, and men can have women as friends. You know, in my life, I'm over 50, just over 50. I ride a motorcycle. I've got a big Harley Davidson. I work in the transportation industry, primarily surrounded by